I would like to invite our panelists today to sit in the table at the front. Please, Claudio, Naikoa, Ellen, Fiona, Ellie, Muri, Gustavo, Sylvester, Yoko, could you please take seat? At some point, we are going to have these identificators. How do you call this in? At some point, we are going to have them. If we are missing seats, just tell us and we. Do we need two more? Two more seats? For Ellen, one or two more? Ellen, your card is here. Sorry. Just the first one. Are you comfortable there? Thank you very much. Well, the first things that I wanted to say to welcome you all is something that we have heard again and again during these previous days. Forests are not just a sectoral issue. They are at the very center of our national and global agendas. They connect policies, people, purposes, and spirits. And we have also heard powerfully and repeatedly during this plenary that monitoring forests is much more than monitoring trees. As the FRA 2025 report reminds us, to monitor forests is, in fact, to look at ourselves. It shows what is happening with us as a species, what is happening with our idea of development and progress, what is happening with our sense of health, equity, and justice. What is happening with our way of relating to other living beings. In short, it shows what is happening with our humanity, the very essence of being humans. And this, dear colleagues, is not only a philosophical discussion. It is profoundly political and it's deeply technical. Because what is at stake is not only how we see our forests and how we monitor our forests, but how we decide to act upon that vision. Welcome to this side event, and we hope you enjoy learning from us and from our guests as much as we enjoy preparing this side event with your participation. I would like invite Ellie, Fiona, and Ellen to open the session. Who wants to start?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Maria Fernanda. I would like
Ellie, sorry, could you introduce yourself? Anyone could introduce when you
so
are?
we go with the firm. Okay. So my name is Ellie Peneva-Reed. I am the country-led planning coordinator, and I would like to pass. I think I'm going to add one more thing. Actually, today Tom asked us to be dressed in our national outfits. I'm not, but I will. So I just want to say that I come from Bulgaria, and I want to welcome all the countries here with their wonderful outfits. It's very impressive. And
You can continue. Just when you took the microphone for the first time, any one of you, could you just introduce yourself and say what you want to say?
thank you, Maria Fernanda. So I would like to welcome all the panelists. We've been working with my colleague, Maria Fernanda, and those who are not with us today, our colleagues from the GFOI program of support, as well as the countries who, some of them hadn't had a chance to travel due to administrative issues. We welcome all of you to this session. I will be brief. The idea today is for the COP to say a few things and let our countries and our GFOI partners and donors to talk, as well as to open the floor to all participants. So I would like to highlight the importance of countries and what they do and how they lead. This is the nature of the COP, to be country-led planning. It's all about that. Today we gather under the theme of connecting agendas through this country-led planning. I will use only COP from now, but we all know what it is. The idea is simple, but powerful and challenging. Forest monitoring systems are no longer only about carbon or REDD+, as Maria Fernanda said. Today, they're becoming the backbone. Not today, they have been becoming the backbone of how countries demonstrate progress across multiple global commitments. Climate, biodiversity, sustainable development, indigenous peoples' rights, restoration, and more. This creates enormous opportunities. Institutionalized national forest monitoring systems can reduce duplication, strengthen national ownership, and provide trusted information. This speaks to different audiences at once, from the UNFCCC reporting to biodiversity strategies, from the Sustainable Development Goals to rights-based development. The COP is designed precisely to support countries in making this shift, turning NFMS into a true multi-purpose national asset. At the same time, as I said at the beginning, we must acknowledge the challenges. Aligning multiple agendas is not easy and simple. Countries face multiple reporting requirements, limited resources, and fragmented governance. Often ministries and agencies operate in silos, while international support can be fragmented or narrowly focused. Women, especially young women, frequently face barriers in equitable participation and empowerment. Indigenous people and local communities, although central to forest stewardship, are not always fully included in national systems. So the key questions for us today to be discussed: how do we move from vision to practice? How can the COP help governments and partners to break silos, coordinate across sectors, and ensure that NFMS become embedded in national institutions as tools for multiple agendas? With that, let us turn to our panel of country delegates and global experts who will bring real experiences and reflections to guide this dialogue. And I would like to invite Fiona to take the floor.
Thanks, Ellie. And thanks everyone for having me here today. Thank you massively to our hosts, Indonesia, and this beautiful plenary, and the organizers from FAO and GFOI as well. My name's Fiona Stringer. I work in the International Forest Unit of the UK government. The UK government has been a long-standing supporter of international forest protection and supporting forest livelihoods, and that's included committing 3 billion of international climate finance for nature to 2026, and specifically 1.5 billion of that is to supporting protecting forests. Obviously, we all know the importance of forest monitoring in protecting forests, and that's why we launched the Aim for Forest program in partnership with the FAO in 2023. And this program is all about bridging those remaining technical and institutional and functional gaps of a national forest monitoring system to see it through to being a fully institutionalized, embedded system in national institutions. Since its inception in 2023, we've adapted the program to serve not only the purposes of RED plus MRV, which is often yeah, I think that's okay. Might have turned it off. So yes, we've adapted the Aim for Forest program to not only be about serving the forest carbon market needs, RED plus MRV, but also about meeting some of those data and reporting needs under things like transparent commodity value chains, under forest monitoring for ecosystem restoration, and also for supporting Indigenous people and local communities to enhance their participation in forest monitoring. But we know that the landscape is obviously evolving, and with emerging opportunities such as the TFFF, which we heard about yesterday and throughout this week, and also things like Article 6 becoming more significant, we know that there are plenty of international opportunities that countries are looking to be interested and engaged in. And that's why we think the Aim for Forest program and other initiatives that the UK supports are looking to be adaptable and tailorable to meet those needs that forest countries are seeing and wanting to pursue. I think Ellie's mentioned it, but the country-led planning is really a significant part of what the Aim for Forest program is doing. It's not meaning to kind of duplicate or replace any other initiatives, but really be a complementary function to support countries to really think through their own national forest monitoring systems, their priorities, their strengths, and how they can all coordinate in this vast landscape together, and to serve both domestic and international purposes of the system. So why is that attractive for the UK? I think we're really keen to see countries empowered to own and manage and lead on their national forest monitoring systems. And we want to be able to understand how we can support them to do that in a strategic way. So programs like Aim for Forests, like the country-led planning component of it, are really helping us to understand what those last remaining technical and functional gaps are in order to get to a fully successful, multi-purpose and tailorable national forest monitoring system for a forest country itself. So we want to have that informed decision making to be able to coordinate our support across within the UK and with other donors as well. Yeah, so I think the CLP and Aim for Forest are a way to do that, and I'm really looking forward to also hearing from our country partners and from the audience and everyone else about how we can really make that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ellen Berzelius-Becker. I'm a policy director for environmental integrity in Norway's International Climate and Forest Initiative in the government of Norway. Thank you so much for inviting me here today and for inviting all of us to cover this important topic. I'd also like to thank the government of Indonesia for hosting us here this week, which is really wonderful. And also to the CLP team for inviting to this timely session, I would say, because I think you raise a very important topic with some pertinent questions. We have to recognize that the situation is evolving and developing. There are international demands for information about forests, but hopefully also increasing national demands for information about forests and land use to develop policy. But in many senses, land use is by definition local. I mean, it happens at a specific place, and we have to recognize that. Development of our societies requires decisions about land use. Hopefully they're informed, not always, but they ought to be. And I'd particularly like to point out that the green transition to zero emission societies for all of us requires informed decisions about land use. We see, for example, in Norway that the energy policy, specifically related to renewable energy, has significant effects on land use. And what are we going to use our lands for in a zero emission society? I think these are some important questions that we need to think about. So what happens in other sectors also matters to the forests and forest lands. And therefore, it's for our countries to be informed and have that cross-sectoral discussions nationally about what we want to use our lands for. But we also have to recognize that some of the drivers for land use are international. And that's why we need this play between the national and the international and the local level when we talk about land use and information. So with that being said, I look forward to the discussions today. I welcome the input for the participants, and I'd like to give the mic back to Maria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you very much to the three of you to open this moment of setting the scene that we are going to complement with Claudio. Claudio, please, you take the microphone and start your intervention. You tell us when to move ahead with your presentation. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Cláudio Almeida. I'm from INPE, Brazil. INPE is a National Institute of Space Research, and I'm a coordinator of the program Biomas BR. My presentation, you can put, okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the organization of GFOI and the government of the Indonesian and the COP for inviting me here. As speaking, it's a great honor to be here to tell a little about our experience on INPE's Biomas BR monitoring program in design forest monitoring system that serve multiple global goals. The next, please. Okay, I'm Cláudio Almeida, and Biomas BR is a program of monitoring of Brazil. Biomas BR have more than 30-80 years. We start in 1988. Now we monitoring all biomes of Brazil. I working at the Biomas BR in the last 20 years. In the last 7 years, I'm a coordinator of this program. This program have diverse objectives while opening in variety ecological environmental. We monitoring the Amazon Atlantic forest biomes where forest monitoring predominate, as well other biomes with a variety of formations, ranging from grassland in Pampa and Pantanal biomes and areas to savanna and open forests in Cerrado and Caatinga biomes. Next, please. INPE satellite monitoring produces systematic data on native vegetation, deforestation, degradation activities for the Brazilian biomes. Put my glasses better. And all this data is official data of Brazilian deforestation for public policy. And contribute to Brazilian conservation and sustainable development. For this, we have 3 projects. The next, please. PRODIS, DETER, the next, please. PRODIS, DETER, and Terra Class. As some of you will be aware, PRODIS produce detailed annual maps showing where native vegetation has been removed. DETER provide an early warning system for the removal and degradation of native vegetation primary for use by enforcement teams. And Terra Class identify the land use and land cover of areas where native vegetation is removal has been detected by PRODIS. Therefore, the objectives, timescales, and inputs of these projects is very different between. The next, please. And we have many different users. The program is initially focused strongly on produce data for scientific purposes. Every year, hundreds of theses, articles, and scientific papers are published based on data provided by Biomas BR. This data has also been used to propose and monitor public policies same PPCDAN, PP Cerrado, all the programs of control of deforestation in Brazil. To submission of RED, FREL reports, and the national communication of UNFCCC. And more recently, this data has also been used to validate environmental compliance in economic sectors. For instance, initiatives such as soil moratorium, the meat agreement, and the granting of the agriculture credit. The next, please. One of the best things about our programs is that we can make all of, making our projects work well together. Knowledge accumulated by different teams in different regions using different methodologies is consolidated within the institution and shared with the entire group. This avoids duplication of work and enable team learning, whereby the transfer of knowledge and experience in academic environmental promotes personal and project growing. Next, please. Another important point in the consistency of the data across space and time. Having an open and transparent methodology that users are familiar with and which provide a stable base for expectation is crucial for producing long-lasting time series that are recognized by the society. It is of equal importance to possess a robust methodology that remain constant and do not undergo modification with which a new algorithm or new satellite is available. The next, please. In my view, the most important feature of this monitoring system is that results must be completely open and accessible in open formats. Monitoring data is only recognized if it can be easily accessed and used by everyone. Data is not open or in an exchangeable format does not benefit society. Furthermore, monitoring systems are only strengthened through the constant use of this data produced. The next, please. Partnerships in the technical and scientific fields are also necessary to keep the system up to date. Partnerships in economic and administrative field are needed to assist with the management of human and financial resources. Most importantly, however, institutional partnerships and bridges must be built. Attention must be paid to demands and offers of the partners, with constant efforts being made to aggregate demands in order to optimize research and results. The next, please. Full development require the construction and maintenance of critical national infrastructures, same these infrastructures. The next. Reliable data lies at the heart of modern governance. It is critical infrastructure for sustainable development of countries. A national forest monitoring system is not just an option, it's a strategic necessity. It's not just a project for environmentalists. It's a project for agribusiness, industry, science, and society. And the GFOI is a privileged space for collaborative development of this critical infrastructure. Thank you. Very short.
Thank you very much, Claudio.
Very short.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you very much for opening the conversation. I'm going to go in alphabetical order with our countries. So Colombia. I'm going to do to formulate the same questions for all the countries that are present here. As Claudio was mentioning, they have advanced in terms of using their data to not only for the internal uses and users, but also for the international commitments and agendas reporting. In the case of Colombia, Gustavo, after introducing yourself, could you please tell us a little bit about the status of this development regarding the National Forest Monitoring System and the reporting for international commitments? What are the challenges, the advances? How have you overcome the challenges? And it's going to be the same question for our other participants.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Gustavo Galindo. I am from the National Forest Monitoring System in Colombia, an institution called IDEAM. Thank you very much for GFOI and Indonesia for the invitation to be here in this beautiful island. Yesterday, I was walking by the beach and there was this beautiful sign that told, plants make people happy. It was very related with the work that we do here. In Colombia, 50% of the country, of the territory, is forests. And if after 15 years of work in the monitoring system, if I think of what has been the best that we've done, is that we positioned that 50% of the country in the political side, that everybody thinks about it. Obviously, that also has caveats, but it's to put up the forest in all people's lives. So now talking about the international and national uses, it's always is a challenge. There you have to have a very clear mandate. You have to think of more multi-purpose actions and planning. You have also to think about all the different kind of you have to be flexible. You have to think about institutionalization. You have to think of ways of integrating the local, the national level. You have to generate also different kind of reports that are useful to a lot of different kinds of people in the country and outside of them. However, the challenge when integrated all this is that national monitoring systems are slaves to the decisions of their past. Even if we talk about flexibility, it's difficult to change when you have a definition, when you have a different specific kind of procedure, that when you're using one kind of methodology, and to change and ensure the consistency of the reports with those changes is not an easy thing to do. There is always new mandates, new responsibility in all the different bodies. And it's a challenge for the national monitoring system to try to integrate them all, to try to integrate it not only in the reporting, but also in the use. So first we're starting thinking of UNFCCC reporting, but then came CBD. There is also a lot of local reporters for law taking action in the country is very important. It's also important to integrate with different kind of communities, with community monitoring. It's also important to generate information that is useful at the local level and do different kinds of reports at different time frames. So monthly, 3 months, 1 day, 2 years. And to assure the consistency of those kinds of reports is always a challenge. Always, especially when we are thinking about the uncertainty and all the way the information could be communicated. So those are the biggest challenges, to be always ready to prepare these kinds of methodology, to be also ready to take action to the different kinds of necessity that will come. One could not be always depending in one kind of image, one kind of methodology, one kind of procedure, because national monitoring systems also always, even though they have to think of a very long time frame, they have always have to be prepared to change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gustavo. We start to see commonalities with the previous presentation, consistency, integration, and let's see what happens with Indonesia. Joko, could you please, can you introduce yourself and answer the question from the experience?
Okay, thank you. My name is Joko Pramono. I'm from Directorate of Forest Resources and Inventory and Monitoring. Baik, saya akan menyampaikan dalam bahasa. Seperti kita ketahui bahwa sistem pemantauan hutan nasional di Indonesia ini kita sebut dengan Simontana, Sistem Monitoring Hutan Nasional. Ini yang sudah kita bangun sudah cukup lama. Ini bertujuan untuk memantau kondisi hutan di Indonesia. Dan ini merupakan satu-satunya atau mungkin bisa dibilang platform resmi pemerintah yang dilakukan untuk memantau kondisi hutan di Indonesia. Sebagaimana kita ketahui terdapat cukup banyak agenda internasional ini yang terkait dengan pemanfaatan NFMS untuk sektor kehutanan, lingkungan hidup dan perubahan iklim seperti UNFCCC, Paris Agreement, UNFF, REDD+, EUDR dan sebagainya. Agenda-agenda internasional tersebut membutuhkan berbagai data dan informasi dengan standar dan kebutuhan yang berbeda-beda. Saat ini Simontana sedang mencoba menjadi multi platform ini yang berstandar nasional dan internasional di mana data dan informasi Simontana dapat dimanfaatkan untuk berbagai pemenuhan komitmen data bagi berbagai agenda internasional tadi. Namun demikian, dalam pengembangannya masih terdapat hambatan utama, di antaranya adalah tata kelola dan kebijakan nasional. Ini yang di antaranya adalah yang pertama, fragmentasi regulasi. Ini masih banyak terdapat perbedaan kepentingan di masing-masing sektor dibandingkan kepentingan nasional, dan hambatan kadang-kala lebih bersifat politis daripada teknis. Hal ini menyebabkan berkurangnya koordinasi, berbagai informasi dan sinergi antar kementerian yang berdampak negatif pada perbedaan kebijakan antar sektor, utamanya pada sektor yang berbasis lahan, dan penyediaan informasi nasional seperti di Kementerian Kehutanan, Kementerian Pertanian, kemudian Kementerian Agraria dan Tata Ruang dan sebagainya. Selanjutnya yang kedua, hambatan utama itu adalah perlindungan dan keamanan data atau interoperabilitas dan berbagi pakai data. Saat ini pemerintah Indonesia telah mengatur interoperabilitas dan berbagi pakai data, khususnya data spasial di antara kementerian, lembaga, pusat, daerah, serta pengaturan untuk riset dan penelitian, akademisi, masyarakat sipil, dan sebagainya. Namun, saat ini belum ada peraturan khusus di tingkat nasional yang mengatur interoperabilitas dan berbagi pakai data dengan dunia internasional. Nah, kemudian untuk mengatasi masalah-masalah tersebut, hal-hal yang sudah kami lakukan adalah mengintegrasikan NFMS dalam perencanaan nasional makro, di mana dilakukan dengan mengarus utamakan NFMS menjadi penentu kunci dalam perencanaan pembangunan nasional di sektor-sektor yang berbasis lahan, termasuk diantaranya adalah mengarus utamakan isu-isu kehutanan seperti deforestasi dan perubahan iklim. Kemudian yang kedua, penguatan terhadap peraturan interoperabilitas dan berbagi paket data, di mana kita punya Badan Informasi Geospasial untuk mengatur interoperabilitas dan berbagi paket data baik di tingkat nasional maupun di daerah dengan memperhatikan aspek keamanan data, privasi data, dan kedaulatan data serta standar data. Saya kira cukup demikian. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Joko. You reiterate some of the previous intervention, and you are also bringing new elements to the table. I hope we have enough time to go back to some of them. Thank you very much. And now, please, Muri, same question for you. Could you introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Muri Soares from the MRV unit at the National Fund for Sustainable Development, which is in the Ministry of Agriculture, Environment and Fisheries of Mozambique. And I think I will highlight, perhaps continuing on from what my colleague from Indonesia said regarding data access and data sharing. I think one of the big challenges in Mozambique is the existence of silos, and these are between ministries, but also within ministries and even sometimes within national directions. And so these data silos really make it difficult to take coordinated and integrated decisions, especially when you're talking about rural development, which is one of the biggest challenges in Mozambique. And for rural development, you really are at the intersection of forests and people, economy, agriculture. So you have many different important aspects and sectors that you need to integrate. And so if these are disjointed, then it makes it difficult to take action. And I think one of the things that we've done that has really sort of helped us move towards this integration is the creation of a publicly accessible geospatial platform in Mozambique. This platform started as a way to display deforestation and forest information, and also some large-scale projects. But then it evolved over time, and it started integrating information on agriculture, community delimitations, biodiversity. So it really became this hub for our information. And allied to this, we also developed some integrated data collection systems that fed directly into this platform. And we are talking about participatory MRV, which is our effort to sort of democratize MRV for the civil society and local communities, but also data collection for agriculture to have information on farmers, extension workers, and yields. So I think this was a big achievement in breaking down these silos. And for the NFMS, I think the big enabler for Mozambique was the emissions reduction program by the FCPF. And I think our big achievement was being able to leverage this program to create a national forest monitoring system. So the system that we developed was able to meet the requirements of the program, but was used so that it could also meet the requirements of the country. So for the forest reference emission level, for the BUR, the country's international climate reporting obligations, we've been able to produce 2 of those in a short time with RED+ technical annexes, and producing annual statistics of deforestation. So I think these were some of the things that were really big positives. For challenges, we feel that with all this information that the country never had before, is actually, it's not being as used as it could be. We feel that civil society, academia, even government has still to come to grips with how to use this information in their processes, in their studies, in their decisions. And so I think that's something that needs to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Is open? Yes, it's open. Thank you very much, Muri. I think the next round of questions, when we finish with Zambia, will touch some of the points that you have bring to the table, referring to international support. In this case, is strengthening and making possible so much great achievements in Mozambique. Sylvester, could you please tell us about you and the experience in Zambia?
Thank you very much, Maria. My name is Sylvester Siame. I'm from Zambia. I work under the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment, particularly under the department responsible for forestry, which is the forestry department. I'm in the forest management unit, where the National Forest Monitoring System for Zambia is anchored. I think in terms of challenges, my three previous speakers have already highlighted a number of them. But just to concretize some of the challenges that they touched on, I think for our country, we developed our National Forest Monitoring System based on project support. And as we stand now, I think that is a great challenge. Like Claudio mentioned, basically the NFMS should be a live environment where there is consistent updates in terms of the data. So that is one of the challenges that we actually highlighted. And also, just like Omuri mentioned, I think from our perspective also, we have seen quite a number of interests coming from various projects that are running within the country that require us to harmonize the way forestry data is collected in the context of the NFMS. For example, we have currently a jurisdictional program that is running in one of the regions, in the eastern region of Zambia. And there is currently some data collection that is going on. But what would be important is to have an overarching national forest monitoring system that takes into account the interests of all the various actors that are dealing with forest deforestation and also forest degradation. And also just to mention that sometime last year, we also did a gap analysis with support from the COP. So that also became a very important eye-opener in terms of identifying some of the weaknesses within the National Forest Monitoring System for our country. And based on that assessment, we have made attempts to begin from the government side to deal with some of the teething gaps that were highlighted. I think one of them was the fact that we don't have a lot of anchorage in terms of the legal provisions and also policy provisions with regard to NFMS. And it came at the right time because at the time that we did the gap analysis, we were in the process of doing a review of our national forest policy of 2014. And as such, we incorporated some of the aspects that came out of from the improvement plan as well as the recommendations from the gap analysis. And also another important aspect I could mention in terms of moving forward is the fact that we are also doing a revision of our Forests Act of 2015, which also creates an opportunity to be able to embed some of the aspects, legal aspects of how we could possibly institutionalize our national forest monitoring system within the existing institutions and be able to have a very robust national forest monitoring system that is that is workable, and also avoid the fragmentation in terms of how the forestry information is being collected. But just to conclude, also, I want to indicate that there's quite a lot of demand for data, particularly from our National Forest Monitoring System. In various angles, I think my colleagues mentioned the demand from the international requirements, for example, to the UNFCCC, as well as other reporting requirements, the CBD and so on. But internally also, we have had a lot of interest, especially that we are also working with the World Bank to develop natural capital accounts for various natural capital resources we have in the country, forests being one of them, as well as protected areas. So the NFMS actually provides an opportunity for us to actually deal with the internal data requirements in the context of natural capital accounting, as well as other existing national or international level reporting requirements. So that requires a lot of effort in terms of dealing with the various challenges, which are very common, which my colleagues from the other three countries have highlighted, and be able to respond to the both the international data requirements as well as the local level data requirements, like I've highlighted. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvester. And thank you very much for the 4 countries participants. I would like to turn to a complementary point of view of things. I would like Naikoa, Fiona, and Ellen, in that order, to comment. Naikoa, please introduce yourself when you are going to talk. To comment on this. We have here today, and in our previous interaction with countries in the CLP, under the CLP initiative, that they are dealing with challenges not only internally that have been mentioned here, like interinstitutional coordination, collaboration, the definition of data standardization and methodologies, interoperability, etc. But also the increasing in demands from the external support. So I would like to hear from you. What do you think if should be some adjustment in the way the international technical, political, financial support is coming to countries? If you think there should be an adjustment, alignment there from the external side, and what kind of adjustment it is expected to come from countries too, and what kind of challenges do you confront internally as donors, supporters, and what kind of challenges are coming from the countries? So, Naikoa?
Very small question. Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to speak in English. My name is Naikoa Aguilar Muchastegui. I'm originally from Colombia. I work at the World Bank. I am a senior climate change specialist there, and I work with supporting the management of 2 of the main performance-based payment funds for emissions reductions programs. The first one is the Carbon Fund, also known as the FCPF, and the other one is the Initiative for Sustainable Forest Landscapes, also known as Biocarbon Fund. And then there's a new fund that is the Scale Fund, which is also about helping countries elaborate and capitalize on climate impactful interventions that help them reduce emissions, and then the idea is to help them monetize those. Okay, well, Maria Fernanda, that's a very big question. Actually, it's a series of questions. the general thinking, I think, is linked with why we're talking about CLP, the idea of the country-led planning. I think the idea of CLP comes from the realization that there's need for a shift in the way we have been doing things for the past 1.5 decades, although now forests have become mainstream. 15 years ago, nobody or almost very few people were talking about forests except amongst ourselves. Now they are mainstream. Everybody talks forests. They are on the news on a yearly basis. The national deforestation rates in Colombia are on the news, and that's a week of a lot of stress for people like Gustavo. and I am sure that for Claudio and Muri and Sylvester, it's the same. But in working, developing the capacities of the countries, it has become apparent that there's places in which the process has been successful. There's always need for additional work, but then there's processes in which the traditional strategies have not worked, both from the countries themselves, but also the supporting agencies. And I think that CLP, the general point that brings is moving from a reactive mode, right? So there's a new opportunity, there's a new framework, there's a new finance mechanism. It's usually money that drives the fact that we are reacting and trying to get access. For example, now we're talking TFFF, and now everybody's like, oh my God, how do I look at the requirements and how does my country fit into these? And then there's sometimes an element of short-term reaction versus long-term planning. So for example, you can gauge yourself as TFFF, but it's interesting that you're looking at the Paris agreements at what the overarching framework of NDCs and national strategies and things like that. So the idea of removing ourselves from reactive mode into a proactive mode. And that proactiveness, I think that something like CLP requires a dialogue between donors and recipient countries in which it's not a, hey, I need this, gimme, 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 gimme from recipient countries. And then from the donor countries, like, I need you, I need this from you, and I'm gonna help you do if you give me this or else. Kind of like so it's about breaking this type of reactive relationship and being more proactive. And I think that a key element there lies in terms of the elements of ownership, appropriation, responsibility, foresight, maturity, and also an exit strategy. And I want to emphasize those topics because there's a lot of culture like the solution needs to come from the outside, and then I'm sitting in my hands on my hands and I'm waiting for solutions to come without really having an ownership as a country of the processes and have a sense of responsibility. And what is it that I'm going to put on the table to come up to the solution and contribute and work together with the donors? But then there's also from the donor side an element of having a longer term programmatic scope and also elaborate together, okay, when is it that you're going to be mature enough so we can move on into other things? And I want to raise a link with something that Sylvester mentioned, which is the project-based approach to funding. Which is definitely not the way of doing things, unless it's a stepping stone and it's part of a bigger thing. And this is where the CLP component, I think, can come into play. Is the project adding value to an overarching strategy that both donors and countries have come together to realize? And what part of that project and that strategy is going to be put on the table and offered by the country, the recipient, and what part is being supported, not the responsibility of, but supported by the donors. And it's only when that dialogue is honest and that strategy has been agreed and the dialogue has come together that will happen. And then I want to finish by highlighting the element that perhaps explains a lot of the success that we have seen in countries like Colombia, Mozambique, Brazil, which I'm the ones that I'm familiar with. Apologies, Sylvester, I'm not very familiar with Zambia, but I know that my colleague Marco van der Hinden is helping you guys. And it's the institutionalization of the forest monitoring work and how the different agencies that have to do with that process in its different aspects and fora are communicating and interacting amongst themselves, and hopefully also the ministries. Only when that has happened, there's going to be sustainability in this process of capacity building and really looking forward and implementation of strategies. And that's part of a legwork that countries need to do themselves. It cannot come from the outside. If that context is in place, then the international cooperation and support will have a landing pad where it will be able to really water the plants, since Gustavo brought the idea that plants make people happy. Well, the only way of making the plants happy is they need to be planted somewhere. They cannot be hanging up in the air. Well, unless it's hydroponics, but then let's not get into that level of detail. And then with that, I'm done. Okay, I hope I answered.
Thank you, Naikoa. Thank you very much. I hope we could have all day to talk about this topic. Fiona?
Thank you. And thanks to all of the speakers here today. It's been really interesting to listen into some of the challenges and also the successes of national forest monitoring systems in different countries. Yeah, I guess just to complement, I think Naikoa covered a lot of it really well, but I guess one of the things that we've been talking about today is how many different opportunities and demands there are. But I think ultimately it all comes back to everyone here sharing the one same goal, which is to kind of protect and restore forests and to tackle climate change. And I think both the domestic side and the international side is always kind of rooted in that common goal and common aim. And I think something that we spoke about in the Monday CLP Connect and Reflect was how we can really connect up the domestic demands and the international demands together. And I do think that there are opportunities to do that, and there's opportunities for everyone to kind of support doing that and support international coordination and alignment for those aims as well. I think I was really, I found it really interesting to hear from Mozambique and their experiences with how the FCPF program, which is kind of, that international initiative, was able to really anchor some of the work on their national forest monitoring system as well, so that they can deliver some of those domestic demands. So sharing across some of those lessons learned would be really interesting and powerful, and how we can kind of replicate that model within other countries, within other experiences, would be really interesting as well. I think something like the CLP, which is doing this forum for sharing, South exchanges and sharing lessons, is critical for that. I think one of the questions that you asked as well was about internal challenges, and I think we share the same internal challenges when it comes to coordination. And I think there's how we can better coordinate the objectives of the support, but then also the delivery of the support. So I think it's also about countries coming together with the international partners and also the delivery partners, and that's going to look very different for each individual country. So I think taking it in a really country-led, country-by-country approach is really helpful as well. And I think someone also shared about the political issues that sometimes come with this and the differing priorities, which I think is very true and can be very significant. And I think that's why the GFOI, which stands as something that is slightly independent and slightly neutral in this convening power, is so powerful and useful for both partners and countries to really use as a tool. And that's why the CLP can be so beneficial for all parties involved. Yeah, thank you. I'll pass on to Ellen.
Thanks, Fiona, and thank you to all the speakers for some very interesting interventions. Like Fiona, I really think it's so good to sit and listen to the experiences. Naikoa and Fiona has already covered a lot of ground on what I wanted to say, so I think I'll be quite short. But I think I'd just like to point out that the commitments / requests / demands that come from the international agreements that we all have they're shared amongst us. They're something that we have, or not necessarily us, but our countries have agreed together at the international arena, and they apply just as much to the donor countries as to countries that do receive ODA assistance. So I think we have to recognize that those are commitments that we all have to meet, and in that regard, we have something in common and perhaps some shared experiences that we can discuss and sort of it's a common situation, something that we all have to face. I mean, I used to work with reporting for Norway, and we struggled with the CRF tables for reporting just as much as anybody. So I think a lot of these things aren't specific to the countries, but something that we've put on ourselves. And in that regard, I think it's quite important that we also convey those experiences that we have to the arena in our countries where those things are being negotiated, so that when commitments are negotiated at the international level, they actually reflect what we can do and what's helpful at home. I think actually I'll leave it at that for now.
I thank you, Ellen. Very, very interesting point of view, this of the shared commitments. So same challenges also, because perhaps the conversation was at some point like you and us, and you are pointing is all us. So doing different things and complementary things, but it is all us. I think that's a very, very good point to bring to this conversation. Ellie, I would like you to talk with us about what this has to do with the country-led planning, and how from your perspective as coordinator, what are the main elements that the country-led planning could offer to the countries regarding the internal, but also the external uses of the NFMS.
Thanks, Maria Fernanda. And I'd like to thank the countries and also our GFOI partners for their honesty, because we have heard a lot about challenges, we have heard about struggles, and we have learned through the COP process that we really learn most from our mistakes and how to improve and how to work together. Most of you in this room, our panelists, are very familiar with the country-led planning. And I would like to just say that the process really helps countries bring different ministries, institutions, people. We sometimes talk about countries, but behind countries sit ministries, and behind those ministries, people. And we need to really ensure that those people come to the table at the same time and speak with the same voice. And not just Ministry of Environment or Forestry, but also planning, also Ministry of Finance, Indigenous Affairs. And by framing the National Forest Monitoring System as a national asset that serves many policies areas. And that Maria Fernanda asked the question of how we could do this. And I believe under the COP, we have started doing this with support from the countries who have welcomed us and support from our partners who have always been there to guide us. So through the COP, countries are supported to really map out who uses the National Forest Monitoring System data and for what purposes. This is important. And then to use this understanding to design coordination mechanism that fit their context. We said this from the very beginning, every country will have different contexts and will set up this differently. And this might mean reviving existing inter-ministerial platforms. In some countries, those are in existence. In others, they will be established under the COP guidance. Clarifying roles and responsibilities also through legal and institutional framework, and or developing joint roadmaps that link forest monitoring to national development and climate goals. I want to also point out that COP is playing also the role of facilitator, working with GFOI partners and donors also to make sure that their technical and financial support, which has been provided for many years, aligns with these national coordination efforts that the countries are putting together. Bringing me back to the point that Ellen made, it's all of us together. So that assistance is complementary rather than fragmented. And in this way, COP helps turn coordination into something institutional, and we hope something that could be sustainable and not project-based. And I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you very much, Ellie. Thank you very much. Claudio, coming back to you. If we could imagine, like, let's say we are in 2035, 40, like 15 years from here, what, listening to what is happening in the countries and the tendencies from the international support and the financial mechanisms and what has been happening also in Brazil and everything, how do you envision the position of the NFMS regarding the international agendas, but what is going to happen with the stakeholders linked in each country with that NFMS? Is there going to be any change or is going to be the same?
I hope, I like in 15 years, all countries have a national system, or each country can work together, or the neighbors or the region, to produce one regional system. If you don't have conditions to take on proper system, they work together with the neighbors or the region to produce an independent system. But for this, I really it's necessary changing our way of seeing some things. It's really necessary open this data. Open this data, it's not easy. I can understand this. When you open, when you open your data, you have more possibility receive critical. Oh, this data is not good. We have problem here. We have problem here. Okay, it's difficult, but this is an opportunity to growing, opportunity to understand where is the point in your data you can change, you can make better than you make at some time. And when you open your data, you don't have control of your data. But at the other time, when the people use your data, your system is more stronger than before. For instance, I can talk a little bit about the last 5 years, last 6 years in Brazil. During the other government, before the government of President Lula, we have many problems. The government decided, okay, we don't care more INPE working with this, because INPE put our data, it's public, it's not better for the government. We need change this and put other institutions to create a national system. But the society don't permit this, because society believe in the work of INPE. The society know when INPE makes something and put all data available for everyone, they have a confidence in our data, our confidence in our work. Because our work, our data, it's completely open for everyone. The lesson for me it's very stronger. If our data it's not open, the government change, okay, now it's not INPE, now it's other institution, and okay, society, oh, it's bad, it's not good, but okay, because it's not part of the society. When you open, the societies understand you are part of this. And because of this, I believe, I hope in 10 or 15 years, we understand this and put our data open. With this is better because a student in any part of the world can support you to modify your system. When this is in Norway, maybe can understand, oh, okay, this is, we put a new algorithm here, this is put a new form of make a mapping better than make today. But it's possible if they have access of your data. This is a way, I hope in 15 years, I can change this and all data is open for the society. And with this, all societies benefit of with this data.
Very inspirational, Claudio. Thank you very much. And it's very well aligned, your intervention, with the spirit of us that Ellen was convening, and also the call that NAICOA did about the kind of relationships to establish in both or in different directions, not reactive relationships, more constructive dialogue. I lost the, sorry. And the need to gain balance is another call that has come here. I'll give you the.
I just wanted to go back to a point that NAICOA made. So the CLP is all about institutionalizing NFMS, having systems embedded within national institutions, not just so they can be sustained, but so they're connected to national decision-making processes and policy development, so they can be used to actively manage forests and drive down deforestation and greenhouse gas emissions. And NAICOA, you gave an example of 3 or 4 countries where deforestation figures are often on the front page of newspapers. And it occurred to me that there are also countries that have good institutional arrangements where systems are embedded. Do we think that's because these systems are connected into the political process and into the decision-making process because it's a high priority, high profile issue in that country? And so therefore, is the key to institutionalizing an NFMS having its profile raised, having it connected to the national discourse, the national discussion? Like, how important do we think it is to have these systems embedded within national institutions run by national agencies, that it is connected into the political process and the decision-making process by virtue of the fact that it's so high profile? It just struck me that when you listed those countries where it's, you know, it's a hot news story, there are also countries that have strong institutions. And I assume that's because there's a demand from the leadership to be able to respond to national pressure that's created by news stories on deforestation numbers. Does anyone on the panel have any reflections on that? Because I think it might be quite key to this challenge of trying to embed NFMS in other countries where they don't necessarily have these stronger institutional arrangements, is trying to raise the profile of, you know, deforestation numbers, the impact of land clearing and what have you in the country. Do we have any reflections on that? Sorry, Martha, to interrupt your flow. I just thought it was a good point to pull out.
That's a very complex question. Why are you asking me the complex questions? I think it's a very complex question because I think that there's many sides to why that is the case. And then I would like to add to that list Indonesia. Sorry, I forgot Indonesia when I was answering my previous intervention. I think it's a combination of the political context of each country regarding the role of these institutions and how the country relates to its natural resources. I think that is an element of that. There's also an element of pride in what the country does. And by that, I mean that these country teams are driven by people who are very passionate about what they do, and they have the constant desire of doing things in the right way and incorporate whatever opportunities and have access to any chances of improving and improving themselves as both as individuals, but also as institutions. So this goes back to the comment that I was making about the sense of ownership of what's happening, about their work, and then the institution that they belong to, and then thereof their country. I think that there's also the element of the political context is super fundamental, political will in institutionalizing things, and then perhaps, and then this is also linked with the national capacities and capacities beyond the specific elements of the national forest monitoring systems, but how the strategy of the country to build its own capacities relates to long-term sustainability. And I will just give you an example. A lot of the countries that we work with, we do a lot of capacity building to technical teams that then lose the individuals because they go elsewhere, and then there's no one behind to replace them because either the country or the supporting agencies have not figured out that perhaps there's the need for building a critical mass of practitioners that can fill the gap that is left at the institutional level when some individuals leave, right? So the role of academia is fundamental, and that's, I think, something that perhaps comes to mind that we should start working more with, not from the research and development component, which is how the GFOI, for example, has been working with academia as a provider of knowledge, but how we incorporate academic institutions as the means of building the capacities and the sustainability of those capabilities in those countries. Because that's the other thing. These countries have very strong academias that feed the people that go into these technical things. I mean, I've worked, some of the countries that I work with, I have individuals that are, I use as a reference as the most technical capable. I mean, it's like chapeau, tip of the hat to these individuals because they know so much and they're so passionate about it, but it's built upon the academic setting that they come from. So sorry, it's not a, it's a non-answer because I don't have the definitive solution, but there's many aspects. Yeah. Perhaps someone else.
I was going to handle that too, Gustavo, because you say there are pros and cons on placing forest in the center of the strategic national agenda. So
yes, well, reflecting in this, a very interesting question. Really, it's not only a variable. I think it is there is a lot of variables that are interacting, just like so that the forest monitoring system has impact in the country. So we're talking, we have seen here a lot of things, transparency, we've seen flexibility, we use multipurpose, all of that add together and a lot more that maybe I'm passing out in this moment. And of course, the one of the political issues is very important. I think in Colombia, it's one of the best things that we did, but also it's like this word of Democles, in which there is a good part, forests have been appropriated in the political part, but also that's a risk because always when it's part of politicians, there is two different sides or more than that. And then you are getting the forest in the middle of them. We have in Colombia cases like that. And in the last years, deforestation has been related with the political changes of different actors in the country. And that's also a risk that has to take it into account. So it's monitoring systems are important. In this moment, maybe that's a challenge that we have and maybe other countries, how to communicate in a better way so that it's appropriated by all the public, but it doesn't have those kinds of risks.
Do you want to go deeper into the question, Tom? Yes. Okay. I think we should finish because we have other tasks today. I would like to give the floor to Ellie for closing this conversation. If you want, you can. From there? Okay.
I want to stay with the countries and the partners. So thank you, Maria Fernanda, and to all panelists. This is a very, very interesting discussion, and I would say just the beginning of it. We and the COP have always tried to create spaces for all of us to be able to come together and bring our own issues, our own challenges, and try to tackle them together. So I would like to close this with a few words and then an announcement. The COP program of support really would like to call both the COP countries, and many of them are sitting here in this room, but as well as the GFOI international partners and donors, to really, not really to take meaningful steps, but to continue taking meaningful steps towards one another. Each doing their part to building this, what we've been talking for the past hour, this invisible infrastructure really to transform the national forest monitoring system into a multi-purpose national assets. On one side, we have the countries, and we encourage them to continue institutionalizing those systems with targeted assistance, which is provided and will be provided under the COP program of support, so that these systems can serve both national and international needs. On the other hand, we call the GFOI partners to initiate a process of aligning their support, ensuring that assistance to countries is coherent, coordinated, and mutually reinforcing. Through the COP process, we are striving to balance targeted support to countries with active coordination among the GFOI partners, moving towards a model of collaborative assistance. By aligning existing agendas and streamlining reporting, we can make collective efforts more efficient, organized, and impactful. A donor-coordinated approach would greatly enhance the COP's effectiveness, ensuring that efforts are complementary, focused, and truly supportive of a country-led priorities. And with that, I would like to make an announcement. And moving from commitments into action, I would like to announce a new COP engagement mechanism. In addition to our biannual COP Connect and Reflect virtual forums, we will now be convening an annual CLP Connect and Align forum with GFOI international partners and donors beginning the first quarter of 2026. So these forums will provide a regular space to talk, coordinate, share lessons, challenges, and jointly plan next steps towards more aligned and impactful support. And thank you all.
Thank you, Ellie. With that invitation to continue the conversation during the next months, years, we have to close this conversation today. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you very much for bringing these strong messages that each one of you left with us. Thank you.